The cold on Varath 9 is not the kind of cold that makes you shiver. It is the kind that makes you stop. It gets into the joints of your suit first, then your fingers. Then, if you are not careful, you're thinking. I had been stationed at Survey Post 11 for 4 months, mapping the glacial shelf alone, and I had learned to respect that cold, the way you respect a very old, very patient enemy. That night, the blizzard came in fast. I was running a final equipment check outside when my scanner picked up something in the ravine below. A thermal signature, faint and dropping. I almost dismissed it. Equipment malfunction, I told myself. Ice-trapped geothermal vent. Something sensible. But the signature had a shape, and shapes like that, curved, compact, huddled, do not come from vents. I stood at the edge of the ravine for maybe 10 seconds. The wind was pushing 60 kilometers an hour. My backup team was 200 kilometers east. My rational mind listed every reason to go back inside, pour coffee, and file a report in the morning. Then I grabbed my rappelling line and went down anyway. I have never been good at the sensible choice when something alive is on the other side. The ravine floor was worse than the surface. The wind cut sideways between the ice walls, and my helmet light barely reached 3 meters ahead. I followed the scanner reading around a bend in the rock and stopped. She was enormous, even curled the way she was, folded in on herself like something trying to become as small as possible. She was nearly 2 meters long. Her skin, which I knew from diplomatic briefings was supposed to shimmer with cool blue and silver light, was almost completely dark. One arm was wrapped around 2 objects pressed against her side. The other was flat against the ice, as if she had reached out at some point and simply never pulled it back. A Velthara, out here, alone. Her translator device was on her belt, cracked clean through, probably from a fall. She was unconscious. The 2 objects against her side were smooth, oval, slightly luminescent, not quite dark, not quite bright. Eggs. I knelt beside her and checked her temperature with my suit sensor. It was bad. Not impossible, but bad. I looked at her for one moment, just one, and then I stopped looking and started working, because there was nothing useful in standing there feeling sorry about it. My survey pack was not a rescue kit. I want to be clear about that. It was designed to keep geological instruments stable in extreme temperatures, which meant I had thermal insulation sheets, chemical heat packs rated for equipment, and a 1-person emergency shelter that was absolutely not designed for a 2-meter bioluminescent alien and her eggs. I set the shelter up against the ravine wall anyway. I laid the insulation sheets down in layers, thickest at the bottom. I activated 4 heat packs and placed them at the corners. Then came the part that made me hesitate for the first time, moving her. I did not know Velthara biology. I did not know if she was injured internally, or if moving her would cause harm I could not see. I did not know if touching her eggs was dangerous, to them or to me. I did not know almost anything that would have been helpful in that moment. What I knew was that she was going to die on that ice if I did nothing. So I moved her. Slowly, carefully. I got my arms under her shoulders. She felt cold in a way that went through even my insulated gloves, smooth and dense, like lifting something carved from deep ocean stone. And I pulled her into the shelter. I positioned her at the center of the insulation layers. Then, with hands I was trying very hard to keep steady, I picked up the eggs one at a time and placed them back against her abdomen, where she had been holding them. I zipped the shelter closed. I sat down beside her in the remaining space, which was not much, and I waited. The blizzard got worse around hour 3. I checked the ravine access line and found it frozen solid. I was not going anywhere until morning, and morning was 11 hours away. I ran the numbers in my head. The heat packs would last roughly 8 hours at full output. My suit had its own thermal regulation, which meant I was a heat source the shelter did not have to work to maintain, something I had not planned but was grateful for. If her body responded to warmth at all, if the biology worked anything like the briefing suggested, there was a chance. Slim, but not zero. I am not a man who is comfortable with silence, which is perhaps a strange quality in a geologist who spends months alone on survey posts. I started talking. I told her about the geology of Varath 9, the way the glacial shelf was moving, slowly, 3 centimeters per year, grinding the rock beneath it into powder so fine it looked like smoke. I told her about my daughter, Priya, who was 11 years old and currently obsessed with building things from scratch and taking them apart again. I told her about a small restaurant in Shanghai, where I had eaten a bowl of noodles in 2041, that I still thought about sometimes, for no rational reason. I do not know if she could hear me. I talked anyway. Humans do that when they are afraid. We fill silence with ourselves, maybe to remind the darkness that we are still there. Around hour 5, the darkness in her skin shifted, for just slightly. A faint pulse of silver, there and gone, like something checking whether it was safe to come back. I turned another heat pack on. Hour 9. She opened her eyes. They were exactly as strange as every photograph I had ever seen, and photographs had not prepared me at all. They were large, almost entirely dark, and they caught the light of the heat packs the way still water catches light, reflecting it back differently than it arrived. She looked at the ceiling of the shelter, then at the eggs beside her, then at me. I went very still. I had no translator. I had no training in Velthara communication. I had no way to tell her that I was not a threat, that I had not stolen her eggs, that I was a geologist from a survey post who had come down a ravine in a blizzard because my scanner had found her and I had not been able to walk away. I did the only thing I could think of. I raised both hands, open, palms facing her. I kept my face calm. I breathed slowly and visibly, so she could see my chest moving, steady and unthreatened. She looked at my hands for a long time. Then she made a sound, low and resonant, more vibration than voice, something I felt in my chest before I heard it with my ears. I did not understand it. I kept my hands where they were. She made the sound again, and then, with a slowness that told me how much effort it cost her, she lifted her hand and placed it over my gloved one. Not gripping, not restraining, just resting. The weight of it was light, almost nothing. I do not have a word for what I felt. I am a practical man. I study rocks, but something happened in that moment that I have never been able to describe properly, and I have stopped trying. I just keep it, somewhere quiet, and take it out when I need it. I sat there in a tiny shelter in a ravine on an ice moon at the edge of surveyed space, with a dying alien's hand resting on mine, and I thought, okay, we are going to be fine. Hour 11. One of the eggs moved. It was subtle, a small shift, a repositioning, the way something moves when it is trying to get comfortable. A pulse of gold light ran across its surface, dim but definite. I stared at it. Ethis. I did not know her name yet, but I thought of her that way later, so I will use it now. Ethis looked at it too, and something changed in her expression. The tension in her face, the tight, careful stillness of something that has been surviving rather than living, loosened just slightly. I rearranged my last 2 heat packs around the egg specifically. I had no idea if that was the right thing to do biologically, but warmth seemed like the right answer. Warmth seemed like the right answer to most things that night. Hour 14. 2 things happened at the same time. The first was a vibration in the ravine walls, the low, harmonic pulse of a Velthara search vessel descending, its landing thrusters cutting through the blizzard above us. The second was the voice of my survey team on the emergency channel, 2 of them, who had tracked my stationary beacon through the storm and were rappelling down from the opposite side. Both groups reached the shelter at almost exactly the same moment. I heard the Velthara crew first, quick, sharp sounds, urgent, and then the seal on the shelter opened from outside and cold air flooded in. There were 3 of them, tall and bright with alarm, and their hands went to their side weapons in the automatic way hands do when they find something unexpected. They found Marcus Ewan, survey geologist, sitting cross-legged in a 1-person emergency shelter on a nest of insulation sheets, beside a recovering Velthara, with her hand still resting on his, with 2 glowing eggs tucked between them, like it was the most natural arrangement in the universe. I looked at the weapons. I looked at the crew. "If you are going to shoot me," I said, "please wait until we confirm the eggs are stable." There was a very long pause. Then the one in the center lowered her weapon. The others followed. And my survey team, Chen and Vasquez, who had just climbed over the ravine wall, took one look at the scene, and Chen said, very quietly, "Yuan, what did you do?" "Geology," I said. "Mostly." They took Athos to the medical bay aboard the search vessel. I gave my statement to the Velthara crew in short, careful sentences, using the translation unit they provided. I described what I had found, what I had done, and why. I kept it simple. Thermal readings, available equipment, Actions taken. The diplomatic official they brought in the next morning was not simple. She was formal and precise, and she sat across from me with her hands folded and looked at me with an expression I could not read at all. "You had no obligation," she said. "No treaty requires interspecies rescue of this nature. You placed yourself at significant personal risk." I thought about that. "Yes," I said. "Then why?" I turned my coffee cup around in my hands. It was a fair question. I had been asked versions of it before, usually by people who thought practicality was the same thing as wisdom. "She was alive," I said. "I had gear. Those are really the only two pieces you need." The official was quiet. Then she said, "Our crew reported that you spoke to her, for many hours, while she was unconscious." "I talk when I am nervous," I said. "It is not a strategy. It is a personal failing." She looked at me for a while longer. I got the impression she was trying to find a category for me and discovering that none of her existing ones fit quite right. That is a feeling I have given people before. I find it more useful than troubling. "We will need to file a formal record," she said finally. "For the account, the description of what you did." "That is fine," I said. "It is not a complicated story." I went down. I kept her warm. I waited. She wrote something. Then she looked up. "Is that how humans think of it?" "Some of us," I said. "The ones I like best." I saw Athos one more time before I was cleared to return to the survey post. She was sitting up in the medical bay, her skin steady and bright again, silver blue and slow pulsing in the way the briefing photographs had shown. The eggs were in a separate warming unit nearby. One of the Velthara medics translated. She told me that when she first saw me come down into the ravine, she had thought I was a predator. Then she thought I was confused. Then she thought I was something she did not have a word for. I asked what word they had found. The translator took a moment. Sometimes translation is not about language. Sometimes it is about finding an equivalent for something that grew differently in different soil. "The closest we have," the translator said, "is someone who has forgotten how to give up." I sat with that for a moment. "Tell her," I said, "that where I come from, we call that a Tuesday." The translator relayed it. Athos made a sound I had not heard from her before. Short, rhythmic, bright. I did not know enough to be certain, but it looked, and sounded, very much like laughter. 6 weeks later, a message came through to the survey post. No text, just a video feed, 30 seconds long. Athos, in a warm room full of amber light, holding 2 hatchlings that glowed gold and pale blue, small enough to cup in both hands. She turned to face the camera. She held one of them up. On the shell, small, careful letters, clearly learned recently and applied with great patience. 2 words in standard. Marcus. I watched the video 4 times. Then I set down my coffee, which had gone cold, and I looked out the window of Survey Post 11, at the glacial shelf of Vareth 9, pale and enormous, and utterly indifferent to everything that lived upon it. I am not a man who cries easily. I sat there for a while,